Welcome, everybody. Uh, First of all, wishing all of you a very happy Diwali. I hope this festival has brought a lot of happiness for you, and wishing it will bring many more happiness and fulfill your dreams as we step into the new year here. So, wishing again a very happy Diwali to all of you. Today we are in the November edition, and we will continue the discussion on subtle body, what we started in our last edition in October edition. So first and foremost, let's start with the prayer. सहनावतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। Our focus will be on the mind because that's the very important instrument we all know, and many research have been done in the past, many are still going in the present, and many more researchers will continue in this field to understand the mind, because mind is the enabler and mind also is the disabler. Mind is everything here. Okay, so a lot of philosophy, everything revolves around mind. And throughout in this series of BMI also, we have been always into the realm of mind. Whatever we have been speaking, mostly it is into the realm of mind. Yet, how much the humanity has understood mind today, we still have to know more. We have to know more about it. Okay, and that's where we take the refuge to the gurus and to the scriptures to understand more about this, because this is the thing which directly affects our life. And as I said, right, it is an enabler. It can take us to the heights of the glory of the life, or it can take us into the decline, rapid decline, and destroy the personality altogether. So we will understand the mind a little bit more, and we will look at some of these factors which destabilize the mind, which have an adverse effect on the mind and eventually have an effect on our overall personality. So when we spoke last, we were talking about this whole chart over here, and we were talking about the inner instruments. When we look at the English language, there is one word only with what they call as mind. It encompasses everything into it. Okay, but when we look at the work which has been done by the sages who have really done the post-mortem of the mind, who have really got in, took a microscopic or the nanoscopic view of the mind, a lot of things happen inside that, and based on the functions, they have kind of come out with different terminologies inside the mind, right? So man, buddhi, chit, ahankar, they form the inner instruments of the subtle body. And thought is the one which forms the basis of it. All these are functioning because there is a thought. Thought is a fuel which is making all these various instruments to work and do their functions. If the thought is gone, the mind is gone, everything goes away, and then there is only one thing that remains, is the truth over there. Okay, so let us have a basic understanding of the mind. So mind is nothing, when we're talking mind is thought, desires, emotions, whatever we call, they are nothing but they are just at the level, you can call it as a one term as thought. Okay. Thought in motion is called as desires, and then desires in different degrees or different levels, the variations of desires, the modification of desires is what result into the emotions like anger, love, and other, all those emotions that we talk about, right? But the basically it is just one component we are talking, thought. Thought is a mind, mind is a thought. Everything is dependent on that. Okay. So let's understand the mind. Miracle. Okay. We all talk about this word miracle. And we talk about the things like superhuman. Somebody has got super normal powers. Okay. This person looks like he has come from a different dimension. And we start worshipping that person who has these extra powers and all. We think that this is a Superman, and I can't be like that. Okay. So there is nothing called miracle. There is nothing called superhuman as such, because there is everything. There is a science which works in this entire matter, the realm of the matter. So there is consciousness, and then there is a matter, and the science of the matter is all that is science. So whatever we see happening, somebody disappears and then appears, that is nothing called miracle. That is all there is a phenomena that works over there. Okay. If at all we believe in miracle, then everything is a miracle. Your existence itself is a miracle. If we start looking at our body functions, how we see in a flash of a second the amount of activity that happens inside the body itself is mind-blowing. So that itself is a miracle. A flower which blossoms, how this process happens so accurately, how accurately Earth moves around the sun in the exact orbit and in the exact period of the time, then everything seems to be miracle in that case. So either it is a miracle, everything is a miracle, or there is nothing is a miracle. Okay, it is a 1 and 0 kind of statement. So anything is possible over there in this world. If we understand the underlying concept, if we understand the science of the matter, if we understand the truth, anything is possible over here. Okay. So set of energies is for, like, what is matter? Matter is nothing but set of energies, and these set of energies is what we define as at the subtle level as the mind. Now there is always again a confusion that how energies can be negative and energy can be positive. Energy is energy. It cannot be having, you can't say that this is good energy or this is a bad energy that way. It is the gunas. As we know that the consciousness is there, and then the 3 gunas are there, and then the rest of the, like, 5 elements, the manifestation or the evolution of takes place. So it is the gunas that we say that the thing which has more tamas guna goes into the category of negative. What things which has more of a sattvic proportion goes in the category of positive side of the spectrum. So that's how the energies are there. And if there is more tamas guna is there, more negative tendency, temperament is proportion is more, then the person, of course, our life ends up into more suffering, pain, affliction. It becomes our tendency to look mostly to the negative side of the thing, even though the negative is just a drop in the ocean. You have a white canvas and you have a small black point over it. It will draw the attention, and as it draws the attention, the entire energy will start working in that direction. Okay. So whether sometimes we say that I am driving a bicycle and I am having this thought, I should not fall away. I should not fall. I should not fall. That means I am directing my energy myself to fall. I will eventually fall in that case, because the entire system will start working in that direction for me. So the moment we think about result, that pain should not come in my life, suffering should not come in my life, affliction should not come in my life. I pray in the morning, I pray in the evening, every time. So I am giving more energy to that part. I am not looking the whiteness of the canvas. I'm just looking at that spot which is black. And I'm giving energy, and those kind of things will start happening in my life. Okay. So I am myself inviting all that things in my life. Okay. Now, similarly on the other side, if we are looking in the whiteness of the canvas, then anything is possible, because this world is made up of everything, three gunas. You will see there will be tamas, there will be sattva, there will be rajas. It cannot be only sattva everywhere in this world. So how we accept these three gunas and then function our life or program our life, tune our mind accordingly, the things will happen in that proportion or for that quality into our life. So that's how the mind, at a very high level, how the mind functions. We all know Sigmund Freud, a very great psychoanalyst, scientist. He did a lot of research in the field of mind. And then we have all heard about these three layers of a mind: the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. So mind is like an ocean. It has various layers at a various depths. Okay. So the conscious mind is more about short-term memory, the mind which is interacting with the world around us, which is the first touch point. When the sensations are received, this is the first touch point, right? The perception happens. So planning, short-term memory, routine functions that we do, it is all happening in the conscious layer of the mind. And as it happens, the top layer of the ocean is always turbulent. There is always a roughness. There is a lot of activity that happens at the upper layer. That's why the conscious mind is more kind of uneasy or restless, this layer of the mind. Okay, it is busy handling the diversity, the diverse things that the world throws at us. And then at the bottom, there is an unconscious layer, which is we are not conscious about, but those things still there. And this forms the large part of the mind. The habits, something which we are doing repeatedly, it becomes part of our unconscious. Okay. Emotions, tendencies, the autonomic body functions like beating of the heart. Who is guiding all that? Which part of the body is kind of commanding that? All those things. That is all autonomic body functions which are there. The intracellular memory, the long-term memory, sometimes the memory which we carry from the previous birth, it is all part of the unconscious. It is an unknown territory. And how big is that territory? How vast it is? We really, nobody knows unless we take our awareness into those subtle layers of the mind to understand that. And then there is a subconscious layer in between, which is kind of a channel between these conscious and these unconscious. There is a subconscious layer which is having this communication between the two layers, and that's how the view that Sigmund Freud had given for the mind. But when we read the scriptures, what sages have told, we get a more in-depth understanding as we understood the functioning of inner instruments in the previous edition. So mind also has a spectrum. There is a number of thoughts that come, the thoughts, the desires, the emotions, there's a different range to it of it. They are at different frequencies, which are coming in our mind at a point. Okay. Now the mind, which is at a lower part of the spectrum, that is more like an animalistic thinking mind. Ego is the highest. Person is more self-centric in that region. Higher selfishness is there. That is a least developed mind. That is the narrowness of that mind will be very small, that area. Okay, that awareness will not be working in a broader area for that kind of spectrum. And then most developed mind on the top, if you see, it is a higher thinking mind, not very self-centric, very broad-minded person, and that's how we say, right? That is the most developed mind. The person who thinks about others, everybody, and has compassion, has friendliness, has harmony, those kind of divine qualities which they kind of germinate in that part of the spectrum of the mind. Ego is very, very low in that region. An average mind, in between mind, is the average mind. So in Kali Yuga, in the era which we are living, we see that most of the minds today, the most of the humans, they fall into the average or the least thing. And that is where the Kali Yuga, it is said, that is more tamas. The proportion of rajas and tamas is more, the proportion of sattva is less among the people. Now, this is a state where it takes very, very dynamic approaches for the sadhana. It is like, when you have a disease which is in the very first stage, it can be cured by a tablet in a very simple way, and it can be cured quickly also. Maybe you take a 5-day treatment or a 7-day treatment, and then it can be quickly healed. But if the disease goes to a stage 2 or stage 3, the advanced stages, it requires special therapies, okay, and the longer time for the healing. More investment is needed for the curing and the healing. Sometimes it becomes irreversible. It crosses that stage where it cannot be cured at all. So in the present times, the stage, we have gone into the advanced stages of lowness, okay, where we are showing low levels of humanity in the people. The tamas has increased. So at this time, the simpler therapies will not work for lifting the mind. Simpler therapies means today people say, okay, I will do 30 minutes of meditation. And we are seeing more and more cases where people say that I meditate, but I don't get anything, and nothing is changing in my life. And people are getting frustrated. Why? Because simple therapies will not work today. You need advanced therapies. You need surgeries, proper surgeries to come out of that stage. Have we gone beyond the point of recovery? Not, we don't know. But we need more energy. We need more deeper techniques. And we need more deeper resolve. And that is where there are very, very few people we see that in the upper part of the spectrum, in the most developed mind, very, very few people we see over there. The force of gravitation is too strong in this current present times. So when we talk about mind management, because that is what the mission of the life, we have taken birth, and this mind creates the entire world, and throughout this life, this mind is giving us various experiences. So managing this mind is the most important activity of the life. So mind management equals to thought management, because the existence of mind depends on the thought. If thought is there, mind is there. If zero thought, zero mind, it is there, right? Now, in Samadhipad. Patanjali has been a great sage, sage Patanjali. We all have heard his name. The system of yoga uh, was very much researched and created legacy he has created, right? So he wrote these Yoga Sutras in the Samadhipad, and that's where he's giving two techniques for mind management. Energy management, because we have this matter is nothing but energy, and to manage this matter you have to manage the energy properly. But energy management alone is not sufficient. That is required, that is mandatory, but that alone is not sufficient. In energy management, two different systems were developed around the same period of time. One system is the system of yoga. The yoga, what we understand today, is not that yoga. The yoga is a very deeper import which is there, which Patanjali has very well explained. Okay, so system of yoga was developed, and there the whole path has been given, like Yam, Niyam, the various discipline and the various stages which have been given. And then different types of yoga systems have come under that. Okay, so yoga was a one system developed, as a one therapy which was developed for the mind management. The other therapy that developed, or the other part developed, is the Tantra. Today, whenever we hear about Tantra, a very a negative mindset, we become very negative hearing the word. We become fearful when somebody talks about Tantra. Tantra is not a kind of a bad thing in all. It's like when we give example of nuclear energy, right? So nuclear energy is the way you use it, it can be very constructive also, it can be destructive also. So Tantra is a technology. The use of technology depends how you use it. And that's where the second part, the second half comes, cultivating the right attitude, developing the matured way of thinking, developing the intellect, because intellect helps us how to use the whole technology which has been available to us. Okay, so yoga and Tantra, they both complement each other. And Rishi Dattatreya, Sage Dattatreya, did a lot of work in blending these two systems together, because they too complement each other. Not everybody can take the path of yoga. It will suit to somebody, it may not suit to somebody. Like again, in the system of medicines, one medicine for the same treatment will suit to a person, but the same medicine with the same ailment to another person will not suit. So the doctor will have to give him a substitute of it, or a complementary thing which can help to the other person. Similarly, yoga will suit to certain person, Tantra will suit to certain person, and then it both can take people to the higher stages, or both can take to the frustration also, because it's all, we talked about mind. It depends on how we are using it properly, and that's where the guidance is needed in the form of Guru. So Rishi Dattatreya blended these two systems very nicely, and then created this system of Siddham Yoga also into that. Okay. So whether it person a tantric or a yogi, both worship Dattatreya as a guru, and Dattatreya received the guru of Dattatreya is Shiva, and we all know that Shiva is the Yogeshwar, Shiva is the lord of Tantra, Shiva is the lord of yoga. So that's how the knowledge from has been kind of created in the past, and these two systems have been used time and again by various sages to receive that enlightenment. At the same time, cultivating the right attitude is also very important, because this will develop the intellect and give us the path of using this energy management in the right direction, so that it brings constructiveness. Okay, it brings the happiness, the prosperity. Okay, but if the right attitude is not there, the personality will use it for the wrong intentions, bad purposes. And that's where the Tantra has been kind of defamed today. And that's why people are scared of hearing this name. Because more and more people are using it for the self-interest, this particular thing, not for the upliftment or not for the purpose they were invented or discovered these things. So satsang, contemplation, meditation, these are the techniques which are given for cultivating the right attitude. And we will speak about these two things more in detail in the today's talk. So again, you see the sutras which are given by the by Patanjali Rishi in the Samadhipada. The first one is talking about cultivating the right attitude. The mind becomes tranquil by cultivating the attitudes of friendliness towards the happy. Number one. Compassion towards the miserable. The second quality, compassion towards the miserable. Joy towards the virtuous. And indifference towards the evil. Now let's take the first one here. Friendliness towards the happy. Friendliness is the mitta, maitri, as it is called in Sanskrit. So in English, we are calling it as friendliness, developing that bhavana of maitri towards the happy. Now this sounds little different because the way our mind is conditioned, okay, it is very difficult to be friendly with a person who is happy. Normally today, as long as our ego is there, it is these four statements become very difficult to achieve. Now take any examples today. If we see a happy person today, someone getting promotion, or someone getting more property, riches, and getting more luxury in the life, does it really give the other person a happy? Immediately there is a feeling of jealousy that comes at that point. In my neighborhood, you see, if there are two neighbors. I have a car, I get a luxury car. After a month, my neighbor gets even a more luxury car than me, more costly car than me. All my happiness diffuses. There will be jealousy because today we are living in the age of competition. There is a competition. Who is more happy? We are thinking everything from the relative thing because of the ajnana, because of the ignorance. We think that the happiness is something right there in the center of the table and we have to grab our share. Otherwise, someone else will grab the share. Someone else is more happy than we feel unhappy that for me, only less share is left on the table now. So that unhappiness comes inside me. That is how very commonly what we see today. So it's very difficult. What Patanjali is telling, you should be friend with the happy. Okay. With the unhappy person, today what we are doing friend with the unhappy person. We feel superior. If someone becomes unhappy, it automatically, the ego inside us feels superior. Oh, thank God, I am not in that state. I am more happier person than this guy. So I am at a higher level. And then we start expressing sympathy towards the person. Because that sympathy is, again, we are nourishing our own ego. The sympathy comes out of ego. Sympathy is not that which comes automatically from the chitta. It is coming out of a ego. Because it gives us that feeling that I am showing sympathy, that means I am at a higher level. And then I will go and keep telling about others that today I have done a charity to that person. I have things. So that will kind of give me more that will give more contentment to my ego. So it is easy to become friend with the unhappy person. And when we are being friend with the unhappy person, that unhappiness is something we are inviting in our lives. But when we become friend with the happy person, we are inviting happiness, because happiness is inside. We are opening the door, and that happiness. So that is the sutra of becoming happy. Be a friend with someone who is happy, genuinely happy, genuine friendly. So if we think more about this very, very subtle thing, Patanjali is touching here and telling us. Compassion towards the miserable. Now, who is the miserable? Miserable is someone who is unhappy person, okay, who is under the sorrow, who is going through suffering. That person is a miserable. Compassion towards the miserable, not the friendliness towards miserable. He's telling. He's not telling show friendliness to the miserable. He's telling show compassion towards the miserable. So what is a compassion here? Compassion means karuna. So someone has gone in the lower state, okay, due to lack of knowledge or ignorance or anything, somebody has dropped in the state. You are giving a hand to pull that person to the same state. You are bringing the person back to the state. You have no emotions attached there. If you are going to be friendly with that miserable person, that means you are again going to the low level, and you will show sympathy. You will not show compassion to that person. That's what Patanjali is trying to say. So compassion towards the miserable. Karuna. Similarly, joy towards the virtuous and indifference towards the evil. Joy towards the virtuous, it is the same explanation as friendliness towards the happy. The same explanation can be applied there also. And indifference towards the evil. If someone is doing evil things, if someone has done some sins or some wrong things, if we show indifference to it, our thing will remain intact. Our happiness will remain intact. The more we show difference to it, the more we are allowing that thing to affect our state of the mind. And our state of the mind will not be tranquil at that point. It will be disturbed. So indifference towards the evil, that is how the guidance coming from Patanjali. Very interesting sutras which are there, and if we reflect more, they reveal a lot of the philosophy and how do we behave in our life with different people in different situations. Now the second sutra, the mind also becomes tranquil by alternatively expelling and retaining the breath. And this is where the energy management piece Patanjali is talking about, the piece of prana, the technology, the yoga and the tantra, that is all coming here. So energy management and cultivating the right attitude, bringing both into the context for the management of the mind, for the management of the thought. Again, third and fourth are all going in that meditation, contemplation. So I will not spend too much time, but the theme, the zest here is we need to understand both are required, the energy management and the cultivating the right attitude, developing the intellect. Both are required for the therapies. So life is a energy phenomena. Everything is energy. And this is how the energy is there. It is in the elliptical shape. It is in the round shape, but elliptical in nature in our body. And that's how the energy flows in the body. So when energy flows in this thing, in this shape, the egg shape, the elliptical shape, the body is in the harmony. Okay. And this is the balanced state of the mind, balanced energy. Then there are various factors that disturb this whole energy flow in the body. If you see this line, if you just cut this egg from the center, you will see the shape of a Shiva Linga. Okay, both side, upper side and the bottom side. Okay, that shows, that's how the energy is reflected, and that's how the Shiva Linga is worshipped. That is the main philosophy of Shiva Linga here. It is energy shape. So these therapies, energy management helps to bring the energy into this round. Otherwise, energy is very distorted. The disorders will form, and in the next chart, we will see when the energy is disordered, they cause the adverse effects on the mind. Okay, so what are these factors which Patanjali is telling, which destabilizes the mind? So in Samadhipad, verse 30, he talks about 8 or 9 factors that destabilize the mind. What are these? Vyadhi. Vyadhi means disease. Sthana. Sthana means languor. Doubt. Samshaya means doubt. Pramada. Pramada is hypnosis. Alasya, lethargy, laziness. Avirati, sensuality. Bhranti, that is delusion. Alabdha, that is impotency. And anavasthit, that means unstable, instability. These are the factors that cause the disharmony, that break the whole harmony or the rhythm of the mind. The mind gets mismanaged by these factors which are there. And on the other hand, in verse number 31, he says the symptoms. How do you know that you are in that state of disharmony? So there will be sorrow or the suffering, dukkha. Dormanasya, there's another symptom which is anguish, anxiety in the body. That will reflect that your energy is not in the proper order. Your mind is not in the proper order. Angam jatva means body tremors. Anga means body parts. There will be tremor feeling in the body parts. Fear creates that tremor. That means energy flow, energy is not in the order. That's one of the symptoms. Irregular breathing. Mind is disturbed, irregular breathing. Swasa praswasa. And vikshepa, the distractions. Chitta vikshepa, the distractions. Mind is not focused. Mind is all over the place. Not able to think properly. Okay. So that is the distractions. These are the symptoms for to know that you really have a problem in the mind. The mind is managed and you need a therapy. You need an energy management therapy, and you need to see that the cultivating the right attitude is really happening or not. Are we really practicing friendliness? Are we really moving towards this compassion, sympathy? All these things we can take a look at and understand where the life is headed. So just quickly understanding each of these factors one by one. So what is a disease? Disease is the disturbance in the natural rhythm of the body. So the whole body is nothing but vibrations. The whole body, every part of the body is vibrating, because everything, there is a matter which is there. So everything has a frequency. When the frequency of any of the body part changes, the vyadhi is happening there. The energy is disturbed in that particular part. And then this is called an uneasy vibration. Dis-ease, it is an uneasy vibration which is there. It disturbs the balance in the body. Okay. So body has energy points. As per acupressure, there are about 700 energy points are there in the body. And then there are energy centers which are there, which are the source of energy in the body. 7 energy centers, as we know, are the key energy centers in the spinal column area. And then this disease manifests it first takes place in the unconscious layer of the mind, and we will not know because we are always living in the conscious. We don't know what is happening in the unconscious, what is there in that. So it starts from there. This vibration moves into that unconscious and then moves to the subconscious and then comes to the conscious, and that's where the bodh comes, the awareness comes that this particular disease has struck me. And then we run for a therapy and for the treatment, whatever kind of thing. Now, disease can come, there are multiple channels disease can come. Disease can come from the past karmas also, which is called as karma dosha. Based on the karmas which we have done and we are carrying that in the form of vasanas, a disease, that vibration can enter through that. So that's a karma dosha. This is the pre-birth stage. Now the disease can enter during the birth also. At the time of the birth, what is the condition of the planets? That is called as graha dosha. So due to the various planets, as the inner body also has the entire Brahmand, entire cosmos inside it. So there are planets inside the body also. So if the position is not correct as per astrology, the science of astrology was there, the graha dosha can take place and then it can form an uneasy vibration in the body somewhere, which may later manifest in your conscious state as any kind of disease. And then post-birth, once the birth has been taken, we have a hereditary channel. We have our ancestors, we have our forefathers. So that is called as pitra dosha, something disease or some uneasy vibration which we have which has entered through our lineage, through our ancestor lineage. That is a pitra dosha. Disease can come from there also. And then during the life, the subtle body, the vikaras, the shat vikaras, what we have, the stress which creates these negative emotions of kama, krodha, lobha, the desire, the anger, the modifications of the desire, the disease can come from that channel also. If we don't know how to manage this, and if we don't have not developing the right attitude, these things will induce any kind of negative vibration or the uneasy vibration inside the body. And then it will manifest as a disease in the form of BP or kidney or any kind of problem, a nerve problem, spondylitis, can come in any form. So there are various levels a disease can sneak into the body and disturb the vibration. Our body is always vulnerable for disease. And one of the reason here is we have moved away from the nature, away from our human nature. That's where we are inviting, and that's where, and this agyan, ignorance is there. We become very vulnerable to the diseases. So vyadhi comes from that part. The second part is the lethargy or the languor, the dullness, sthana. So it's like a bucket with the holes, the leakage, the energy which is there is not taking a proper shape of egg, because there are so many leakage points which are there which we are not aware of. So what is happening here is we are taking energy and we are releasing it back into and we are letting it go. Like money comes and we just don't know how to manage the money. We spend it into areas where it should not be spent. So that's a wastage. So the energy is not developing in the body. The mind will always be in the state of anxiety. The mind will always be in a disturbed state in that case. Low energy level. The person will have low energy levels, and the characteristics of such person is that person will be a good talker. He will talk big things, but he will never be able to walk the talk. He will not be able to apply those things, because he doesn't have that energy to convert the theory into the practice. He has information, but to get the experience, he needs to do that purushartha. And for purushartha requires high energy, but leakage is causing that energy to go away. So he's really not able to achieve what he is really talking about. Such a person will not entertain a high goal in the life, because awareness cannot apprehend that highness of the goal. Person will have small goals here and there in the life, and such a person becomes satisfied and content with the achievement, those small things, what the person achieves in the life. But he will never be able to achieve something big. He will never be able to comprehend the whole meaning of the life or the purpose of the life, because of the languor. Energy leakage is happening. You must have seen a lot of people talk about God. They talk about spirituality. But when you look at their lifestyle, the lifestyle is exactly opposite. So that is a political personality. Who is talking something and who is doing something is something politics doesn't mean only people in the parliament. Politics, any person can be political. In the home, in the business, in the office. When you are talking something and where you are doing something, you're not walking the talk, that is a political person. And many people we see today, they're all politicians. Because of we don't have the knowledge how to manage the energy. How the energy leakage is happening, we don't know. Like water leaks in the house. Once you know there is a leakage, then only you will call the plumber. But when it is a leakage is happening, you don't know. The water will continue to leak. Your prosperity will continue to leak there. Take simple example. The energy leaks. What are the points? 700 energy points are there in the body as per acupressure science. And then energy centers are there. So we are getting energy, but through our eyes, the energy leaks out. Whatever we are seeing and all, your eyes will tell the story. It will look very tired in the evening, right? If you are going in a car, you are driving and you have your eyes open, after some time, the tiredness will come, because you can't see, your eyes cannot take too much. You need to blink the eyes. That's why the blinking of the eye happens, right? To give that eye that small little rest to get ready for that. Then energy leaks from the fingers, energy leaks from the feet, energy leaks from the spinal cord. And that's why yogis say that you have to sit straight. Why they tell us to sit straight with the erect spine? Because less surface of the body should be exposed to the gravity. If the more surface of the body is exposed to the gravity, more energy will be pulled. So if you are bent like this, if you are bent, more and more points of your energy points of your body are exposed to the surface of the earth. The gravity will act on it and pull the energy down. But when you are sitting straight, spinal column, only the bottom part is exposed to the gravity. The rest of the body is not exposed to the gravity. It is vertical to that. So you lose less amount of energy in that posture. And when you lose less amount of energy, you remain more highly aware. Your awareness levels will remain higher into that. So these are basic things for energy management, which a person, as we should know. When we are sleeping in the night, when we are sleeping, our whole spinal cord is exposed to the gravity. More and more energy is taken by the ground, and then it balances the energy. Whatever excess energy has taken in the body, it will be. That's why the next day we sit up and we are more balanced. The excess energy is taken out. Third The third part, we have 5-6 minutes, so we'll talk about one or two more factors and then we can cover the rest in the next edition. The third one is the doubt, sanshaya. The doubt means indecisiveness. Doubt emerges when there is no clarity, when there is a lack of clarity, when the buddhi is not able to do its function, not able to analyze. Okay. So the doubts will come, because in the inner instrument, we talked about man, buddhi, chit, ahankar. The function of the man is to project, or it is to throw the dilemmas, because this world is a diverse world. The outside world contains a lot of diversity. So it will continue to throw dilemmas. Every vishay, every subject will throw dilemmas. And the buddhi's function is to resolve those dilemmas. But if buddhi is weak, analytical ability is weak, the amount of confusion will continue. The dilemma will continue to increase. And at one point, you feel helpless. Doubts will come. Okay. So it again stems from ignorance and agyan. This lack of awareness stems from the ignorance. So analytical inability will be there. These are the characteristics. Person will have less. We lose our self-confidence. We lose self-belief because we are not confident of our own decision-making at that point. So that is the sanshaya which created self-doubt. And then we start doubting others. So there are two meanings. Like one doubt is you are not trusting others. You have doubt on others. That's a different connotation of the doubt. Here we are talking in a different context about doubt, which is sanshaya. Sanshaya is different. And shak, doubt means shak also. You do a shak. Shak is different. We are not talking about shak. We are talking about sanshaya over here. So that's another factor which creates disharmony. So removing the doubt is very important. So the person needs to use his analytical ability, logic, or take help of guru to remove the doubts which come, the dilemmas which come, and keep on moving. The fourth one is the hypnosis, pramada. So what happens when there is a lack of confidence, when there is a lack of self-belief in ourselves, when the person doesn't trust himself, he has no confidence, that makes the person dependent on the others. So lack of self-belief and lack of self-confidence means you are not believing in your own ability. And if you don't believe in your own ability, you will put your belief into others. And then you become remote controlled. Hypnosis, pramada, leads us to become remote controlled or get influenced by the others. And as we said, right, today, more and more percent, 99% are the politicians around us, right? So people will take advantage of us. The moment you give your remote control to somebody, they will take advantage of you. So that's the state of hypnosis, is what Samadhipad Patanjali is telling. Today we see that we are getting bombarded by a lot of information through advertisements, and everybody is trying, all businessmen, TV shows, they are bombarding with all the information. Too much of information which we are not able to comprehend, digest, when it comes, it causes the hypnosis. It leads us into the state of pramada. Okay. So this is how we understand pramada, that the factor that is, again, we need to be aware of, that's how it works. So what we can do, we can stop at this point and pick up in our next section with the other factors and and then talk more. So this subtle body, we will continue in our December edition also. And then we'll see that if we can finish in December or in January, this subject. So let's do the prayer and close the session. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much. Over to you, Shishirji.
Thank you, Anurag sir, for the wonderful session. So we'll meet again next Sunday for the questions we have for that specific session we conducted today. So in case if you have any questions, you can put down or put it on the WhatsApp group, or we can discuss directly in the next session at the same time the next Sunday. Thank you everyone, and have a
Thank
great day
you.
ahead.